In order to fulfill my solemn duty to protect America and its citizens, the United States will withdraw from the Paris Climate Accord. Thus, as of today, the United States will cease all implementation of the non-binding Paris Accord and the draconian financial and economic burdens the agreement imposes on our country, but begin negotiations to re-enter either the Paris Accord or in really entirely new transaction on terms that are fair to the United States, its businesses, its workers, its people, its taxpayers. So we're getting out, but we will start to negotiate, and we will see if we can make a deal that's fair. And if we can, that's great. And if we can't, that's fine. The same nations asking us to stay in the agreement are the countries that have collectively cost America trillions of dollars through tough trade practices. You see what's happening? It's pretty obvious to those that want to keep an open mind. At what point does America get demeaned? At what point do they start laughing at us as a country? We don't want other leaders and other countries laughing at us anymore, and they won't be. I was elected to represent the citizens of Pittsburgh, not Paris.
You know, actually, I mean, the great irony is that they are laughing.
They're laughing now.
They are laughing, but they're not laughing at America. They're laughing at Donald Trump. The world is shocked.
Is in hysterics.
Yeah, I don't actually think they're laughing. I think a lot of people in Europe who of course, when Trump was elected, thought the whole thing was a joke, now think it's not so much scary as sad, that people are dismayed at the lack of American leadership on what is probably the most fundamental issue of our time, climate change. Right. And there's a sense of real sadness in Europe about what is happening to American global leadership.
We were speaking at the German embassy last night, and I remember this came up, and the audience of really, you know, accomplished women, they were all shaking their heads, and they had a look of a mixture between horror and disgust on their face, as it pertains to Trump and this and everything.
So let's put it in perspective, and then we'll get through the story. I mean, again, a lot of people may disagree with me. There was so much hyperbole flying around yesterday on the right, on the far right, on Donald Trump, in Trump land. The hyperbole that he was taking away our sovereignty, it was going to destroy our... It's voluntary. We set the goals for ourselves. It was a device to try to get countries like China and India, who are now developing countries, to actually also set guidelines. It's voluntary.
No.
There was no sovereignty lost by this. That's why it was stupid to get out, because it was voluntary. The United States has already started making great strides towards reducing carbon emissions. That's the first thing. The second thing is the suggestion that this was going to hurt the United States economy is just another lie. It's just it's voluntary. You can have, I mean, there's a reason why Gary Cohn on the inside, the guy that ran Goldman Sachs, says, let's stay in. There's a reason why GE and Jeff Immelt said, let's stay in. There's a reason why CEOs from Exxon said, let's stay in. There's a reason why most of Silicon Valley's leaders said, let's stay in. Because it's not bad in the long run for the economy. It's actually good in the long run for the economy.
Lloyd Blankfein's first tweet ever was about this.
Lloyd Blankfein at Goldman Sachs. This is not hard. I'm going to say, though, if you want to strip it down, but the hyperbole on the left, this is the day that the world came to an end.
That's the overreach.
No.
Everybody needs to watch out
It's hyperbole, and you need to go back, if you want to understand what hyperbole that is, to see what some of the most progressive thought leaders, were saying about the Paris Accords when they were first passed, that they're toothless, that they're not going to make a difference, that it's really symbolism more than anything else. The person, Willie Geist, talks about this all the time, a friend of his who actually was one of the foremost climate scientists who came up with the theory of greenhouse gases. I remember him showing me the email the morning after Paris was signed. He said, this is a bunch of BS, except he didn't say BS. He said it was absolute garbage. These were voluntary guidelines set. So, Gene, the impact of this, at least as far as I'm concerned, maybe people believe it's going to be the day after tomorrow and Florida's going to disappear in a couple weeks. They don't help their cause because they're exaggerating. But there are two huge takeaways, I believe, from this. Number one, the damage it's done to us is grave diplomatically, across Europe especially. Diplomatically, it's grave, and Europeans do believe that this is the United States withdrawing from the world. They are very concerned, and they're going to follow up on what Merkel said last week, which is they're going to have to look elsewhere for leadership. Secondly, and I think more disturbingly even, if you can believe it, this proves that Donald Trump does not give a damn about the world. He does not give a damn about the United States as a whole. He cares about his core 38%. And this is the Steve Bannon effect. The short-sighted stupidity that you were going to focus on your 38% to the exclusion of the rest of the country.
Yeah, welcome to the bizarre new normal.
And by the way, welcome to Nancy Pelosi being Speaker of the House.
Yeah, right. I mean,
well,
look, you know, in terms of the actual impact on carbon emissions of what happened yesterday, it's nil. We were never going to make the Paris targets under Donald Trump. To begin with, right? Because he's trying to revive coal, he's trying to pump more oil and gas. But the abdication of American leadership, I think, is a huge deal. And I think we'll look back on yesterday as a very, very big deal. It's just, it's...
In terms of American leadership.
In terms of American leadership, the withdrawal, and it means somebody's got to step up.
So, Jeremy, hold on. We have the leaders of France and Germany and Italy issuing a joint statement saying the path laid out in the accord is, quote, irreversible. And we firmly believe that the Paris Agreement cannot be renegotiated.
I reaffirm clearly that the Paris Agreement remains irreversible and will be implemented not just by France, but by all the other nations. We will succeed because we are fully committed. Because wherever we live, whoever we are, we all share the same responsibility. Make our planet great again.
Also reacting to yesterday to Trump's decision was German Chancellor Angela Merkel's main competitor in the upcoming election, Martin Schulz, who has been outspoken in his distaste for Trump, tweeting, quote, you can withdraw from a climate agreement, but not from climate change, Mr. Trump. Reality isn't just another statesman you shove away. And there's that.
And there's that. Jeremy.
Well, if you think about this as a mini Brexit for Trump, I think that's how they see this in the White House. This is another spoke out of the wheel of the international community. I mean, they see this as a way of dismantling the post-World War II order in which there was a global community and there were global citizens that were a part of that community that had a moral responsibility to lead. That's just not how they see the world. I mean, but the problem with that is of course, it allows France and Germany and other European leaders to step into that vacuum. And
more importantly, China, which is stepping into that vacuum.
China is stepping up and saying, okay, if the U.S. won't lead on climate, we will. They have the biggest solar panel industry in the world by far already. They're going to take the lead in clean energy technology, and we're not.
And it's more than just climate. I think climate was the third place where China has got a huge opening now. First was trade. Second was security, and the president comes home from his trip and basically sends the message to Europe, the security order is going to be different. Those three are three pillars of the post-World War II international order, where the United States was first among equals in the West. The president does not want that kind of world. And is it going to make the life better for people in the United States? It doesn't. Today does not look like that to the rest of the world and to a lot of people.
Well, and Caddy, to follow up on what you said, there is, I mean, in Europe, there is a great fear and almost a warning that the United States is withdrawing, that Donald Trump is not from Paris, but from Europe, from
maybe
the relationship that we've had for over 50 years.
I think there is a realization in Europe now that the bombing in Syria was a kind of aberration in Trump's foreign policy, that people might have thought that was a moment of intervention, that actually Trump was not going to be the isolationist president that he'd said he was going to be, that he kind of rode back from the inaugural America First type tone. And then the combination of the trip to Europe, as Mark was saying, and withdrawing immediately from the Paris Accord, and not just withdrawing it from it, but the language that he used yesterday smacked so much of that inaugural address. We were way back in those dark days where the rest of the world is out to get America, is taking advantage of America, and I will never let them. I'm going to stop them from laughing at us.
It's Steve Bannon is back in power at the White House, and Bannon
with Jared being under scrutiny.
Jared being under scrutiny, and Bannon is hell-bent on making sure that 38% of Americans love Donald Trump. And he's going to get his wish. 38% of Americans will love Donald Trump, and Nancy Pelosi will be Speaker of the House. And if Donald Trump runs for re-election, he will get wiped off
So Richard Haas tweeted about the Paris news, abandoning the global climate accord, and he says this: with TPP and Paris withdrawals and NATO uncertainty, U.S. foreign policy and healthcare policy increasingly one and the same, repeal without replace. Mike Barnicle, the president's foreign policy team, wouldn't they have some concerns about the symbolism of the past 24 hours?
Mika, yesterday was sad, it was depressing, it was cynical. It was a verbal portrait filled with half-truths and no truths, a verbal portrait of America in retreat, played out by a man with little understanding of history or our role on the world stage. And for that 38%, all I can say is, get ready, 38% Trump supporters, to buy solar panels made in China at Home Depot in about 10 years. That's what we're looking forward to.
Yeah.
Yep.
And coming up, we're going to go live to Russia, where NBC's Keir Simmons tracked down Sergei Gurkov, the Russian state banker who graduated from spy school. You're watching Morning Joe.
Is that the guy that they met with?
Well, it's important meetings about business and or sanctions, but
is it called spy school, Mark Alpern? I don't know. Do they have spy school in Russian on the building?
They do.
Wow, that's impressive.
In Cyrillic.
I'd like to go.
We'll be right back.
Spy logo is the spy versus spy.
Yeah. Thanks for checking out MSNBC on YouTube, and make sure you subscribe to stay up to date on the day's biggest stories. And you can click on any of the videos around us to watch more from Morning Joe and MSNBC. Thanks so much for watching.